Okay, so a little secret. I am currently working on another book. And so I was inspired to do an episode here for the Conscious Creator podcast on how to write a book in the personal growth space. So I do have my book here, The Seven Energies of the Soul. Um, I'll talk a bit about that just as a framework of how to get into the space and write a book. But before we jump into the how of it, are people still reading books? And the short answer is yes. The long answer is it's different now. Less people read physical books. There's a lot of people who read on Kindle now, and a lot of people like to listen to the audiobook. I did record my own audiobook. I think that's way better than having a voiceover do it. People hearing your own voice, in your book in your own voice, but you don't have to do it that way. I did. Obviously, we're in the TikTok, culture now where people have less focus and attention span. That being said, there's something about a book that has wisdom and depth that just cannot and likely will not be replaced anytime soon. Okay. And unlike other videos and content that disappears into the ethers, a book really does stick around. So how do we go about creating one? When I wrote this book, The Seven Energies of the Soul, I had a friend let me borrow her house in Canada near the water on Vancouver Island in Victoria. And I just walked up and down the water and I just absorbed as much content, as many podcasts as I could on how to write a book. One of the podcasts I really liked that was helpful was the Self Publishing School podcast, and it's still around. I'll drop the link in the notes. That one was really helpful for me. And then after I felt like I took enough information in on how to write a book, I just started writing and went in a lot of directions. And it was just a very creative phase of throwing stuff at the wall to see what would stick. And so when I coach people in writing books, which I've done some of, what I suggest is starting from the inside out. So what I personally do, I'll go through what I personally do, and then I'll go through what my friend Kelly Notaras, whose link I'll share to her company, Can Literary Arts. I'll do a screen share. She's an amazing book editor, and she has a whole process and YouTube channel on how to write a book. I'll share some of her information. Maybe I'll even get her on this podcast and she could tell you directly how she likes to do it. She is a good friend of mine, lives up the street. So let's see. But let me just start with how I do it. What I like to do is I start the book not from the beginning to the end, but from the inside out. So I have a list of stories from all my teachings, from my life in general, stories of lessons I've learned, of heartbreak I've had, of really cool miracles, whatever, everything and anything. I do one-liners. I put them in a notebook, and then I put them in themes: teaching, healing, growing, pain, miracles, whatever it is. And then when I go to write and I'm getting into something, I'll read through my stories. I'll go, that one's interesting. And I'll write out the story and I'll find the theme. So I kind of like to write the book from the inside out. And then it starts to take shape and starts to take form. Now, when I wrote The Seven Energies of the Soul, what I wanted was to create a structure for my students to learn how to find balance and purpose in life. And over the years of teaching, I noticed that all of my students kind of fell into these buckets of things that they were working on: developing as a healer, developing as a lover in their relationship space, developing as a mentor, teacher, what I would call the master space, as a entrepreneur, as the creator. And so I created that structure that I found was useful. The structure has no inherent truth to it. We can cut the pie in 10 pieces or 10,000 pieces. It's useful. So as a teacher, you're creating a system or a structure, if you are a teacher, coach, guide, healer, that's useful. Okay. So that's what I did. And then I I had a structure, I had all of my life stories, and I had the wisdom from those stories, from my teachings that I wanted to incorporate into the book. And from that, I created a journey. So a book, just like a movie, just like a TV series, just like a poem, just like a Substack article, has a journey. So you have to decide what that journey is. Are you educating? Are you awakening? Are you just entertaining people? What is the point of the journey, right? So if you're writing a book on fitness, then you have a clear sense of the goal of this book is to help somebody lose weight. Or you're writing a book on self-love. The goal of this book is to help people release self-judgment and invalidation and learn how to love themselves. The power of now. The goal of the book is to learn how to be present. Okay. The Four Agreements, one of the best selling books in spirituality of all time, right? How to Master Living Life. The Untethered Soul. Brene Brown's, one of her books is right behind me. You know, whatever the book is, it has a journey. Oh, this Brene Brown is back there, the red one. Can't remember the name of it right now. And that's Rick Rubin's book on creativity. So there is a journey that you're taking them on. You're using your life, your story, your wisdom to take them on that journey. So the way Kelly, I like how she frames it. Um, and it's really simple. Three parts: the problem, the transformation, and the path. So the problem is what the problem the reader is facing. Say, I want to lose weight, or I want to love myself. You go through that problem. Or one of my favorite books, The War of Art. And the beginning of that, the first act, is all about resistance, what it is, how we experience it. The second is the transformation. So, what's possible and what you've learned, right? So, what does that transformation look like? And then the third is the path, the actual how to. Okay. So, whatever the framework is for you as a teacher, healer, guide, you don't have to follow that. Maybe you write a fiction book and it's intertwined more subtly, but that is a nice way to look at it and to go about it. And then the next thing is, who is the reader? So you want to have a clear reader in mind. It's important to know who the reader is. You can't talk to everybody. If you do, then you're talking to nobody, as they would say. So who is the reader? And talk to them really, really clearly. Maybe it's you from 20 years ago, right? Maybe it's a client of yours that's the avatar reader, and you're helping with a very specific problem. So when you decide on the journey of the book, before you go into writing from beginning to end, if it was me, I would go through my stories. I would write down all of the quotes that I love, the wisdom around the topic, and maybe some research. Now with AI, it's much faster and easier to do research. And when I start getting a clear picture of the journey, that's when I actually start doing the writing. When you write, be really careful not to edit. Don't keep going back and reading and editing. Just write. Okay. And have some discipline in terms of sitting down. Maybe it's 20 minutes every single day, or 40 minutes, or 2 hours, 4 days a week. Choose a structure of writing that's going to work for you, that you're not going to give up on after a couple of days. And in my experience writing, it takes months, many, many months. And so you need to just do a little bit every day over time. Even if you do 1% of your book every day, it's 100 days. And then maybe you need some more time to edit. But if you do 1% a day in 100 days, if you wrote every day, you've got something. Not all of us can do this alone. So we need help. For example, you might need a developmental editor, someone to go over the structure of the actual project with you and the arc of the journey. One of the things I like about Kelly's company, Can Literary Arts, I'll share my screen, is if you're in the very beginning part of the journey, you can actually get a book coach who will guide you through the beginning parts of the journey, which I've had friends use them and have a really great experience. So that's really cool. If you're like, I really don't know how to get going, I need someone to hold my hand, that might be a way to go. Okay. Then when you get deeper into it and you need some editing, there's also that available. So I love her company when you're ready to get some editing help. And I do recommend getting editing help early on, even if you don't have a completed manuscript. So there's developmental editing, there's line editing, and then there's editing, right? And then, of course, proofreading. So there's a lot to the journey. Um, the other company I actually really like, if this is not right for you, is Readsy. It's more of like an Upwork or a Fiverr where you can just find editors to do small jobs based on their genre and experience. And they're rated. You can see what books they've done before. You can get quotes on the price. And it is a bit hit or miss, but it's also another option if you're looking for a good editor. Okay. So when you get into this project of writing a book, one of the first things you'll experience is overwhelm. Imposter syndrome might be the second. And then I want to give up a third. That is a natural arc of getting into book writing. It's not a pleasant experience for everyone. Some people love to write and they do a good job of it and it's fun. For people like me, it's a harder journey. Uh, but at the end of the day, it's worth it. It was definitely worth it for me. They say 84% of people want to write a book and less than 1% of people actually write it and finish it. A lot of people start books. I know people who wrote books 20 years ago and never published it and it was finished. So getting to the end of that journey is hard and we might need help to get to the very end. So when I write a book, for me the book is not standalone. It's part of an ecosystem of my work. So for example, with the seven energies, there's a free 21-day meditation series. There is a quiz that over 15,000 people have taken already. Maybe I'll do an episode on just doing a quiz and do a screen share of the quiz. And then I did a 7-part video series for it on YouTube on going over each energy. And so there's education in and around the book. And there's the audio version, right? All of it together. And then it feeds a bigger structure, which is learning to meditate, finding purpose and balance in your life. So it's just part of that puzzle. And it's a tool in a bigger picture of my teachings. And probably most books I write will be like that. So when you're writing the book, you can already be thinking of a companion for the book. You know, what is the goal here? What journey am I going to take someone on? What are the results I'm going to help them get, especially in the personal growth space? And can I create other things around it as companions, as part of an ecosystem? That's how I like to look at it and also have fun with it. To write is to be creative. So it's hard and it's also very fulfilling when you pass through some of that resistance. Read The War of Art 5 or 10 times. It might help you go from being an amateur to a pro writer. That's the point, part of the point of that book. It really, really helped me on my journey when I was writing. And listening to podcasts like the Self Publishing School podcast was also very helpful. And then I hired a developmental editor who helped me create the book and then also do a book proposal because I was going for a publisher. I wish I had hired my developmental editor sooner or had a book coach. I probably wasted a year of dilly-dallying around and going in directions I didn't need to. And I guess I didn't know any better and maybe didn't want to spend the money on help. But looking back, if I could have changed anything, it would have been hiring help faster to cut down on the time of meandering and figuring out a direction. So I hope that's helpful. Last thing I'll say about this is a lot of times I'll get the question, should I self-publish or should I get a publisher? And that really depends on your situation. If you have a large audience, a publisher might be helpful. They usually won't take an author unless they have a big email list or social media presence of some kind, because they want to know that you can sell books. They also take a very large chunk of the proceeds of the book. The upside could be they can get you into bookstores or give the book more authority or put you in a network of teachers. Like if you're in What Sounds True or Hay House, or my publisher for my first book was Hierophant Publishing. I got to go teach with like Don Miguel Ruiz and his kids, his sons, not his kids, their sons. They're grown-ups and onto some other events that were really cool. And so there was some value added from having a publisher. But if you're just getting going, you don't have that, self-publishing might be the way to go. Usually with a publisher, it takes a lot longer to get your book out. There's a process. It might be an extra year. Whereas self-publishing, you could have your book out in a week through Amazon. So depends what your goals are. But at the end of the day, the book is about helping people, helping them heal, grow, awaken. You're probably going to intertwine your journey and your wisdom, and then you're going to give them a solution to their problem and entertain them the entire way through. All right. If you have the feeling like you want to write, sit your tuchus down and start writing. And hopefully I'll see you on the other side. All right.